I'm here with Erlend, Prestgard. And Erlend, today we are probably going to be a little bit nerdy in the discussion because it's going to be about technologies and how technologies are now disrupting existing business models, but also how technologies can provide us with new platforms for future growth. And I know, Erlend, that you have been many years in Telenor. And then one day you came to me and you said that, I still remember it, you said that I want to be a disruptor because I have some views on how technology is going to disrupt the traditional telecom legacy, and I wanted to prove that I'm right. So you and together with some colleagues, you started a company, still with Telenor as one of the owners, and then you have actually built a software-based core platform in utilizing a public cloud. So Erlend, tell me a little bit about what your idea was, how you have proven that to be right, and what this company is all about.
I think it started while I worked for Telenor in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And I remember we did quite a bit of work together with Google and Facebook. And I think I was getting a little bit frustrated because every time we had a meeting, they brought an engineer and they had done something or fixed something. But we had often not progressed on the technology side. We had to send a PO, or we had to do a purchase request, or we had to do a spec before we could move. And I think that was one aspect. The other aspect was we did a lot of really cool stuff in Bangladesh, but we couldn't easily transfer it to Pakistan or to Myanmar or to Malaysia or to Thailand because the technology was different.
Or to Norway.
Or to Norway, for that matter, or to Europe. So I think that the impression I was left with is there is a fundamental difference between some of the players that we met as partners and as competitors in their ability to move fast and at global scale versus our ability to do so. That was kind of the source of my frustration. And then, by coincidence, I would say, I met Werner, who was running a team here in Telenor Digital called Software Telco. And under the broader team of Software is Eating the World, they were actually developing I would say, the engine room of the telco stack, the core network, with software only, that was suddenly then possible to deploy at global scale. And I think we had a bit of an aha moment that said, well, if players like Google and Microsoft and AWS especially, which we leverage a lot, if they're able to deploy data centers and infrastructure across the world consistently, well, then it must be possible to build software on top of that consistently across the globe, to run telcos consistently across the globe. And if that's possible, someone is going to do it. But nobody was. And then we figured out we have to do it then.
But why couldn't Werner and his team just continue to do that in Telenor as they did? Why did we have to kind of split this out?
That's a nuanced and interesting question, I guess. I think there are several elements to it. I think this is hard to do. And you need to feel the pressure. I think it is... you need to have the demands and the pressure of fighting the market mechanisms if you're going to have a chance to succeed. So that's one. So I think you know, if you're too safe and comfortable inside a big company, there's a risk that you're not exposed enough to the market forces. I think that's one element. And then I think the decision-making processes need to be quick and fast. And by definition, inside a bigger corporate company, there are different demands to governance that will slow you down. And I think you can't afford that. And then I think we needed to build a very specific culture, which is, I think, broadly defined an engineering culture. And inside operators, I think you need to have different elements to that culture. And we wanted to, I think, focus on that. So those are at least some of the elements that we thought was necessary to bring out. And lastly, we want to become a global provider of core networks. And Telenor competes with some of these operators. So making sure that those potential partners were also comfortable buying from a company from us was important. And I think they see it as a strength that Telenor is invested. I think they're also happy if Telenor doesn't fully control it. So there were.
So, but with a little bit more simpler language then. So what you are doing is that you are taking a core traditional legacy core platform in telco, and you are making that based on software in the cloud. Yeah. And it's a scalable then platform which allow you to both be less complicated, less complexity, but also has a flexibility that the traditional core platform in a traditional telco wouldn't have.
Yes. So I think when we started this, we really built it for the purposes of driving innovation, allowing for third-party product and service innovation. Much like Android and iOS does for handsets, we want to do the same for networks.
You mean the operating system that iOS and Android is?
So you know, they are an operating system on top of hardware, and they enable millions of developers to come and build apps, applications on top of that, and they create a marketplace and ecosystem to do that. We want to do exactly the same for radio networks, for operators. And the only difference is instead of handsets, there are radio networks. Instead of Android or iOS, it's a core network. So right now, I think we have an amazing demo where any developer can log on to developer.wg2.com, and they can actually build a product. And they don't have to talk to us. And they can make that product available on a marketplace, and any operator on our platform can activate that product.
And your belief was, and I think is even stronger now, that if telcos don't understand that, someone else are going to actually take that position and that part of the value, the traditional telco value chain.
I think in bits and pieces, you're already seeing that happen. I think I think my favorite examples, which we talked about before, is players like Twilio. And I think it's not a fair example, but telcos have basically started giving away SMS for free. Twilio has built their business on making SMS programmable and making it valuable. Fundamentally, the inspiration we take from Twilio is by making connectivity open, programmable, available to a broad set of developers and companies, you increase the value of the connectivity itself. And that's, I think, the big insight from the Twilio example. And yes, okay, it was mainly SMS for them and it's voice, but connectivity, the amount of assets and small gold nuggets in an operator's network is huge. But operators have historically closed the networks, and they've operated as isolated islands from each other. I think if we open this up, you can suddenly make small Twilios and small UCAS players and CPaaS players and this promise of 5G and programmability is only going to be delivered if lots of people are able to program what 5G is supposed to do. And I think when Ericsson now bought Vonage, I think this is a symbol of what is to come. They bought Vonage to, I think they hope to, drive programmability. And I think we are doing that from scratch. We're building the entire network so that it is programmable.
But then from the kind of idea and the more theoretical approach to this, now you are live. So talk a little bit about that. You actually now have customers. You're testing it out.
I think Telenor, has been a fantastic anchor customer. The hardest thing you do in telco if you're selling core networks is to gain credibility. It's not the technology that is hard. It's actually not being Nokia or Ericsson that is hard. And Telenor did an amazing job at being a customer. And over the last, so we're probably one of the most mature players developing core networks in public cloud, actually. And we have been live for more than 4 years, running a core network out of Amazon for years. and onboarding our next set of customers as we speak, and kind of had, I think, our commercial breakthrough last year, and are now onboarding Hutchinson and a few other customers as well.
What do you mean by commercial breakthrough?
Selling the core network to new customers, basically. So I think, as I said, I think the biggest hurdle you have as a small company in this industry is credibility. The level of risk averseness in telco is quite high, and it's an uphill battle to gain a foothold in the industry in core networks. And last year, I think we proved that we can do that, which was a big win for us.
But being then a startup with an idea, you should have some benefits then of having Telenor as one of your main owner, but still this was very hard. What is a hard part of actually moving into a legacy business which is well established with some new ideas around new technologies?
That's a very good question, and it's you're fighting a system. It's almost like you're seen as a virus to some extent. It's all the defenses activate when you come in and say you can get core network as an API. I think you're activating all the defenses of the entire establishment. And again, the technology is hard, but not the hardest. It's actually gaining trust and working with customers to slowly onboard them into this idea of both using public cloud, getting a network delivered as a service, fully as a service. It's the extreme model. You get a core network as an API, and having this delivered in modern DevOps mode, which every other industry in the world is adopting, but telco is resisting. That has been really, really hard. But now we're seeing, trend by trend, you can add up, right? The adoption of public cloud is increasing. We've seen Dish, we see it AT&T, we've seen Swisscom, we've seen Telenor. That is, the watershed is about to come, I think, for public cloud adoption in various shapes and forms. I think you're seeing as a service models increasingly emerging because people realize that as a service allows you to do DevOps, and DevOps is very, very powerful. And then you're seeing, again, every other successful tech industries build marketplaces and they build platforms. And again, it has to come to telco. It's an imperative. The industry will always be there, but it'll be less and less relevant unless they start taking those positions.
In addition to this platform being cost efficient, because it has less complexity, it is in the public cloud, as you said. Let me also talk a little bit about more the flexibility part of it, or the growth of opportunities part of it. So what have you seen on that? What does such a platform actually enable a telco to do with their customers?
Right. I think the fact is, telco innovation has, I would say, a somewhat sad story. Telcos, I think, after SMS, the real innovation in telco has been lagging. The Gs come, but not micro product and service innovation. I think one of the big reasons for that is the cost associated with trying something new. And we have personal experience from this. When you try to build a product or a service on a telco stack, that is a time-demanding, effort-demanding, cost-intensive exercise. And these projects typically run into many months with several big teams and often millions and millions of dollars or kroners. So I think our job is to make the marginal cost of developing a product or service as close to zero as we possibly can. And I think if we can do that, then we have solved the biggest problem, the biggest hurdle, because then people can start doing small things that can scale. And I think that is how you drive innovation, is you make it cheap and easy and fast to do many things and then choose the one that wins. Right now, telcos in a position, they have to bet on only the winners. And nobody can do that, which means you avoid doing things. So I think our primary goal is if we can make marginal costs very close to zero, that allows anyone in the world to build something very quickly, then I think we will see innovation emerging. And then we will see growth emerging.
Very good. Very interesting talk. Thanks for explaining this, hopefully in a way that people can understand. It is a bit technology driven, but that is also what telecom is these days, or the digital journey is about these days, utilizing those new technologies to both disrupt but also to create new type of business models and growth platforms.
I think it's an imperative for the industry to, I think the industry should compare itself to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very interesting exercise in comparing and contrasting models. And I think the telco industry, which by the way, I love the industry and I kind of want it to prosper because I think it's important. I think if you compare and contrast it, you will find some very simple answers. We're trying to address those contrasts.
Well, then I think it's good to end with saying good luck to both of us. I'm thinking together with the team in Telenor very hard every day on how this industry, telecom industry, is going to develop. And I know you are doing the same. And even though our 15 minutes probably became a little bit technology nerdy type of focus, I really would like to hear back from you guys about what you think about the telecom industry, but also what you think about new technologies being both disruptive, but also basing a future digital model and a growth model for our industry to come. So please comment on the stream.